What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another review, and this time we're taking a look at Joker Folie à Deux, directed by Todd Philips, co-written by Phillips and Scott Silver. Joker Folie à Deux is the sequel to the 2019 film. Once again, Joaquin Phoenix returns as his role of Arthur Fleck, aka the Joker, while also we have Lady Gaga portraying Harley Quinn, aka Lee. So the overall story of Joker, I'm going to say Joker 2, is as follows. The film takes place 2 years after the events of the original movie, in which Arthur Fleck is in Arkham Hospital. While in Arkham Hospital, he is awaiting his trial, and in the interim develops a romance with Lee. So yeah, that is the overall plot line of Joker Folie à Deux. Let's try and go over this movie as quickly as possible because, well, I agree with the majority consensus where I feel that Joker 2 is not only a step down from that first movie, but also does everything in its power to tear down that first movie in every egregious way it possibly can. This movie truly does feel like Todd Phillips giving a middle finger not only to WB Studios, but to the fans who liked that first movie, like myself. Yeah, I don't have a whole lot of positive things to say about Joker Folie à Deux. Aside from maybe a couple of positives here and there, this is going to be very, very negative because this movie is frustrating. It's frustrating to watch because as you're watching it, you can literally piece together where the story should have gone as opposed to where it ended up going. And you're just left scratching your head at the end saying to yourself, well, that was a waste of 2.5 hours. Yeah. This is one of those movies where the negative is going to be understandable because this movie had so much potential to be something better than what it was. It had a very interesting concept to it, but the execution, you can tell that this execution was done by somebody who was bitter about being forced to do a sequel that he clearly didn't want to do, and his payback was to just tear down everything that all the goodwill that he created with that first movie, and he decided to just take a giant load all over it. So I'll say this, in terms of Todd Phillips wanting to stick with the WB, I give you some credit, but at the same time, you suck because you also disrespected the fans who made that first movie popular. So like, it's a give and take when it comes to Todd Villains. He is a villain for making this movie. To Todd Phillips' intention with Joker Folie à Deux. Yeah, so with all that preamble out of the way, let's just go over the positives first before we go into the many, many negatives I have with this movie. So, positives. Once again, Joaquin Phoenix returns as the character of Arthur Fleck, and even though I don't overall like the direction they went with the character, especially as the movie progresses, he once again shows that he is committed to any role he's in. Just like in that first movie, Joaquin commits to this movie. He puts in another just fantastic performance as the character of Arthur Fleck. You know, Phoenix just has a very just magnetic on-screen presence that you can't take your eyes off him, whether he's in a good movie like the first Joker or in a middling movie like this. The man just commands attention, and yeah, his on-screen presence and charisma, it clearly shows. He aced it in this movie. He took the garbage material that was written for him and he tried to do the best he could with it. So all the props to Joaquin Phoenix. He puts in a great performance as usual as Arthur Fleck. You also have Lady Gaga who plays this movie's version of Harley Quinn. She's an inmate in Arkham Asylum who develops a blossoming romance with Arthur, I should say. And I'm not gonna rag on Lady Gaga. She's not a trained actress. I mean, I know she's done other like a few movies before this, but she does her best and she tries to be on the same level as Joaquin Phoenix, but you can tell that when these two are sharing screen time, Joaquin is the better actor. Lady Gaga's delivery with some dialogue can come across as very stilted and very stunted, and yeah, there are times where I don't think she's putting in enough emotions. Her performance is a mixed bag. And I don't even think her and Joaquin have all that great on-screen chemistry. Like, I think you could have gotten a much better trained actress to play Harley Quinn in this movie. But I don't want to rag on her too much because there are certain scenes where I do think her and Joaquin Phoenix show flashes of potential. And those scenes are actually the musical scenes that really just bog the movie down and I'll express my negatives for those musical scenes momentarily. But yeah, the scenes where she is the most comfortable are the musical scenes. And listen, I'm not going to discredit Lady Gaga. She's a very talented musician. I understand that when in her early career, she was often compared to Madonna, but I think she's developed her own character in that sort of way. And then you have a very solid supporting cast that includes Kathleen Keener, who plays Arthur's attorney, who's trying to get him off the hook. You have Jackie Gleason, who plays one of the security guards at Arkham Hospital. We're led to believe that he and Arthur have a kind of a mutual respect of a relationship, but that proves to be not the case, as Jackie is just as sadistic as all the other Arkham inmates. He's just a little bit more, as all the other Arkham guards, I'm sorry. He's just slightly more nicer to Arthur in certain aspects, but not by much. And we also have Harry Lottery, whatever, I can't pronounce his last name. Anyway, he plays this movie's incarnation of Harvey Dent. And when I get to my negatives, I'm going to express how I feel he was utterly wasted in this movie. Performance-wise, in the few scenes that he does have, he was okay. He didn't really bring anything noticeable to the table. He didn't act like Harvey Dent in any way. He was just Harvey Dent in name only. And you also have Steve Coogan, who makes an appearance in this movie, but playing a character by the name of Patty, who is basically a TV personality that is interviewing Arthur about the crimes he committed. This is another aspect that I'm going to touch upon in my negatives, because you could have gotten some interesting mileage out of this, but you didn't get that much out of it. I know I've been like peppering in some of my negative aspects as I've been trying to go over the positives, but the problem is it's really hard not to intersect those opinions because a lot of these characters, they could have been handled so much better than what they were. But like I said, acting wise, I think most of the cast does a really good job. Lady Gaga, though I don't think she was all that great, she does try to hold her own in certain scenes. She tries, and I'll give her credit. The supporting cast, they do what they need to do. Everyone puts in good performances. I just don't think their characters are all that interesting. But we get to the point of the positives where I think this movie really excels at, and that is its production values and its cinematography. Lawrence Shear once again returns to photograph this movie, and just like that first movie, he puts in an A+ job. Like Larry Shear in the first Joker movie made you feel like you were seeing a desolate wasteland that Gotham has become. And in this movie, he really brings out the more surrealistic atmosphere of Arkham State Hospital and everything that goes on in Arthur's mind, because a lot of this movie's musical segments all appear in Arthur's head. Like, they're not really happening to everyone else around him. Now, this is a concept that I liked. However, I do not like the execution of it because it doesn't do anything to progress the movie. It just grinds the movie to a screeching halt. But I will express those thoughts very, very, very quickly. Let me just go over the remaining positives that I have. Yes, Larry Shear's cinematography, he brings that same grounded grittiness from that first movie to this one. Like when the scenes are taking place at Arkham State Hospital, you can like literally feel the grime and just sadness that place brings. And then when you see the court, when we see Arthur in the courthouse and stuff like that, you can also see that gritty griminess also, because everything just feels a little bit off in this movie. Like Gotham feels like a town, like a place that you just don't want to be in. As usual, Todd Phillips, in terms of his directing, he puts in an A+ job. This movie's got that same Martin Scorsese feel like the first movie had. Though with this one, I think he took a little bit more inspiration from New York, New York, since this movie is meant to be a musical. So you can see some vague comparisons to this movie and New York, New York, with Robert De Niro and Liza Minnelli, while also maintaining that taxi driver gritty aesthetic throughout the film. So like, yeah, in terms of the visual style, Todd Phillips and Larry Shear, they once again made this movie feel like a lost Scorsese movie, for better or worse. I also like the production design. I think this movie has got some beautiful production designs, especially with the musical sequences. Even though I'm going to illustrate why I don't like those sequences, I do admire the sets that were built for them, and they are really well choreographed. And I do appreciate the fact that Todd Phillips did try to make every single one of the musical sequences feel like their own thing with their own distinct tone and stuff like that. Like, he didn't make them all feel the same. He tried to give them some variety in terms of what songs he used, the sets that the characters were on, and stuff, and so on and so forth. So, like I said, in terms of like production values and production design, this is a beautiful looking movie, along with some really awesome cinematography. Not only that, I like the contrast as well. I like how you have a lot of scenes that are just in like these dirty, just gritty, dank areas, and then you see like bright colors like reds and oranges and greens and blues, and those characters just pop, really giving you this otherworldly type of feel. Like, you got these bright, vibrant colors that pop in this grim and gritty atmosphere. Like, it's cool. Like, I like that stuff. Well, I can't prolong it anymore. It's time to really deep dive into the negatives and why I feel that this movie is just many, many steps below that first Joker movie. So let's not beat around the bush. The relationship between Harley and Joker in this movie, it started off with potential. I like the idea of Harley being an inmate at Arkham Hospital. I like the idea of her not really being crazy, but being obsessed with the Joker, to the point where she voluntarily checked herself into the hospital and created this whole elaborate backstory for herself about how she was abused and how her dad died and stuff like that, to really like get into Arthur's head herself. Like, I like the idea of this version of Harley being a manipulator and trying to trigger Arthur's Joker persona to fully taking him over. That's an idea the movie presents, and it doesn't do anything with it. Especially when you get towards the end, where Arthur just completely just renounces the Joker persona. It really just makes Harley Quinn feel absolutely pointless in this movie. And again, you had a very interesting concept on paper in which the roles were flipped, where it's actually Harley that's manipulating Joker this time. However, I would have had this Harley still maintain her core feelings for Joker himself. Like, I would still have Harley be obsessively in love with Arthur, and she's using that obsession and love to bring out his Joker persona, because that's, in her mind, that's the man of her dreams or something like that. You could have gotten some really just very just insane Mickey and Mallory Knox stuff out of this, but you didn't. And the one scene that like set this relationship in motion, where it was off to a good start, was the scene where they're watching a movie with other inmates and Harley sets fire to the projection room. And that's where her and Joker finally have that love at first sight type of deal. That was the foundation for something cool. And you pretty much spun your wheels with this. Like, half their dialogue is it's just mumbo jumbo about building mountains and all this other garbage. Like, okay, really? No. It should be more than just about, oh, we're going to build a mountain. Oh, we're going to build a mountain. And then you have these just jarring musical sequences that cut in to a lot of scenes. And it's just jarring because it just takes away the momentum that a lot of scenes are building to when you have these musical numbers. Now, I already said my piece on them. Production-wise, the musical numbers look great. In terms of how they fit into the overall story, it doesn't do anything to advance or progress anything. It's basically just a character says something that's related to a song, and then they just go into a musical related to said song, and you don't get nothing out of it. The only time where a musical number actually made a lot of sense, at least to me, is when Arthur is on trial and he has a vision in his head about killing the judge and people in the courtroom. That's the only time where he embraces it, where you actually see the Joker acting like the Joker, and it was actually good. Like, it worked for the scene that it was in. All the other musical numbers, they're meant to expand upon the love story between Harley and Joker, yet I never really got that sense, because the dialogue doesn't really do much to make me feel anything with these two. All you hear is how Harley wants to build a mountain and how Arthur is in love with Lee and doesn't want to believe the truth about Lee. Nothing. It's literally the equivalent of just spinning your wheels and rinse and repeating the same dialogue beats, only with different wording and different delivery. Oh my God, frustrating. And now we get to how Todd Phillips chose to expand on Arthur's character and story as a whole. I hate it. I hate it. Pretty much all the development that Arthur went through in that first movie is rendered pointless the second he appears on screen. He is still presented as weak, feeble, gets bullied, gets taken advantage of. All that confidence that you think he gained at the end of that first movie, it's almost as if it never happened. And it's frustrating. It's frustrating because throughout this entire movie, he's constantly being ridiculed and beat down by these Arkham guards, and it's clear that a lot of the inmates, view Arthur as like a hero to them, and the movie doesn't really do much to create this sort of in-house rivalry between Arthur and the inmates against the Arkham guards. Like, you could have did something very interesting where Arthur, with a newfound confidence, more or less takes control over Arkham State Hospital, and now you have these security guards who are trying to tear down his image, but they're having trouble doing so. And this could have led to an explosive third act where it's pretty much the inmates versus the guards, and you have this big breakout where Arthur fully embracing his Joker garb, and Harley and Lee fully embracing her Harley Quinn garb, pretty much taking control of Gotham as its king and queen. Now again, this is just how I would have did Arthur's story, but that's not what this movie gave us. This movie just gave us the same Arthur Fleck from that first movie, who gets bullied and run down, and just when you think his character is building to something cool, it does absolutely nothing. Like, he literally starts off the same place you see him in that first movie, only this time he has remorse for his actions. The writing for this movie is terrible. And to me, the two biggest egregious actions where Arthur's character could have fully been formed with the whole Joker persona and the ideas that they're playing with, it's with Arthur's attorney, played by Catherine Keener, where she's trying to make a case that Joker is Arthur's split personality. Now, you bring up this concept of a split personality, and you have Harvey Dent in your story, and you do absolutely nothing with that. You don't have any scenes of Catherine Keener's character interacting with Harvey outside the courthouse, and her seeing a duality within Harvey that she could potentially use to discredit his case against Arthur. We don't get nothing like that at all. We don't get anything remotely interesting like that at all, where they play off the duality of Joker and Harvey. Because like I said, in this movie, Harvey Dent is here, but only in name only, because his character acts nothing like him. Then you have the Steve Coogan character of Patty, which is also a missed opportunity. The Patty character is presented as a radio personality who was interviewing Arthur while he's in Arkham Asylum. Now, this movie could have gone down the route of having Patty's character be very similar to RDJ's character in Natural Born Killers, where he's just like a true crime exploitative type of person who just wants to pop a rating, and he wants to exploit Arthur's psyche, and he wants to exploit Arthur's crimes and kind of like glorify it. I don't get that sense at all with the Patty character. Like, it's almost as if Steve Coogan played it totally straight with no sense of malice behind it. Missed opportunity, because you could have used this as a parallel to how Murray was exploiting Arthur. You could have did the same thing with Patty, only this time with the TV personality, you can slowly start to see Arthur transforming into the Joker as the interview goes on, but that never really happens. It's just Patty wanting to get thoughts on Arthur and how he feels about everything, and we never get the sense of Arthur like reveling in his actions in the previous movie. Oh my god, this movie's so fucking frustrating. And then you get to the court scenes. The court scenes, to me, are where this movie just completely just decided to say, fuck it, I got nothing for you. They start off okay. The first court scene starts off interesting, where Arthur is being dressed down by a psychiatrist, and then Catherine Keener's character pretty much rebunks everything that the psychiatrist said, using the whole thing that the guy played by Ken Leung is saying that he spent like almost 2 hours with Arthur interviewing him. Then Kathleen says, no, you didn't. You were there for 89 minutes. So in 89 minutes, you didn't even come close to scratching the surface of this man's psyche. And then Arthur starts to daydream about being in his Joker garb, and along with Harley, they start causing chaos in the courtroom. Like, this is the scene I was telling you about, where it feels like Joker is acting like Joker, where he's shooting at people, he's beating the judge to death with a gavel. And then at the end of the number, he blows his brains out. Like, this is pure Joker. But it's in a daydream musical. And yeah, once we get back to reality, this is where Arthur fires his attorney and decides to represent himself, because Harley feels that the attorney is doing Arthur no favors and is just running him more into the ground, to the point where he's never going to get released from Arkham Hospital. But again, this is where the movie makes you feel like it's building to something cool, because now we get appearances from Zazie Beetz' character of Sophie Dumond, and from Gary Puddles, who was the dwarf character that was the only person who was ever nice to Arthur in that first movie. This right here was this movie's biggest miss, because pretty much with the Sophie Dumond character, we already know that the relationship between the two never happened, but when she goes on stand, she basically says that she never had any relationship with Arthur, and that after speaking with Arthur's mother, she basically said that Arthur just creates these fantasies in order to make himself feel good about himself, hence why he has the nickname Happy. So, in other words, Sophie Dumond's character serves no purpose to the story. It's just meant to be a cameo. But the one scene that you could have did something with is when Arthur, now representing himself, is in full-blown Joker garb, and this is where you think the movie is finally going to have Arthur embrace that Joker personality, because he's putting on a show in this clown makeup while talking to Gary Puddles. But while he's talking to Gary, and Gary just expresses just how scared he was and how powerless he was when Arthur killed that dude, this is the scene where Arthur starts to show remorse, because Gary strikes a chord within Arthur's soul, and this is where Arthur starts to second guess himself. I hate this. I hate this. Want to know why I hate this? I'll tell you why I hate this, because this is the scene. This should have been the scene where Arthur kills Gary. Not because he hates Gary, but because Gary is making him feel remorse. And in Arthur's mind, him feeling remorse should be a sign of weakness. This is where he should have killed Gary and fully just becoming this remorseless character and fully embracing the Joker personality. Because he should have killed Gary, he should have killed the judge, and then after all that happens, then you have the courthouse explosion where Arthur escapes into the night with his Joker minions, while also grabbing Lee, who was in her full-blown Harley garb. That's what I would have done. That's where I felt the movie was going, but it doesn't. He talks with Gary. He sees this sadness and fear in Gary's eyes, and that's when Arthur starts to remember, hey, you know what? I felt those things too. I feel bad about myself now, because Gary is right. He was always nice to me, and I was always nice to him, and I made him feel scared. I would not have done that. I would have had Arthur completely shed any humanity that he had left by killing Gary, the only person that was his true friend, fully just erasing his past as Arthur Fleck and embracing his new path as the Joker. Never happened. Not in this movie. And I bet you're wondering why I haven't mentioned Lee in a while. Well, it's because there are good chunks in this movie where Lee almost feels like an afterthought. Like, when you get to the third act, they tried to do a parallel scene where, like, when Arthur did that first movie, he puts on his Joker makeup for the first time. They try to do a scene like that with Lady Gaga, but it just doesn't feel natural. Like, if you're going to do this right, like, in terms of how I felt you could have do it, this movie should have been the tale of two cities. This should have been the tale of Arthur shedding his former life and embracing his new role as the Joker. while at the same time showing Lee embrace her new persona as Harley Quinn. Like, Lee's character journey should have been similar to Arthur's journey in that first movie. So that way, when you get to the end, we get the king and queen of crime, and they're about to take over Gotham together. But we don't get any of that stuff. Yeah, we just have Arthur renouncing his role as the Joker. He sees Lee on the Joker steps in her Harley makeup. He says, you know, I'm free, let's do something. And Lee's like, no, I don't want to. You're just plain old Arthur, and you're free, and you're a geek. I want nothing to do with you. What a way to emasculate this character any further. He finds a new sense of compassion and remorse, and he doesn't get the girl in the end. And then he gets killed by some rando inmate who tells a joke and then gives himself a Glasgow smile, implying that this person who killed Arthur is going to be the new Joker. Fucking stupid. You know what? I think I've ranted and raved about Joker Folie à Deux long enough. I don't really have a whole lot left to say. This movie was a massive disappointment. I went into it with cautious expectations because I did like that first movie and the trailers did intrigue me. But when I finally watched this thing from start to finish twice now, I can honestly say that I do not care for Joker Folie à Deux. It's got great acting. It's got great production values. It's got awesome cinematography. It's got impeccable directing by Todd Philips. But the story is what brings this movie down, and it brings it down to the point of just rock bottom frustration, because the elements of something cool are there. But Todd Phillips chose to go in a different direction. He chose to go in the good old subversion of expectations direction, which I can't stand. Like, you can subvert expectations to an extent, but when you do it to this degree, it's almost as if you're making a mockery of your own work. Like, this movie feels like a parody of that first movie, and it feels like a parody that just makes fun of it. I hate it. I can't stand that. I don't like it at all. Yeah, like, this movie is so fucking annoying because there are so many instances where it could have had flashes of something great. Like I said, you could have done something with the Arkham inmates versus the Arkham guards, especially when you get to that scene where a bunch of them just violate Arthur in the bathroom, and you think that's going to be one of the triggering points for him finally embracing his darker side, the side that gives him confidence to fight back. It never happens. You think in the multiple courtroom scenes that he's finally going to embrace that Joker persona and something grand's going to happen, and it never comes. And then you just get to the most whimperest of endings where the movie just kills Arthur off, treating him like he's nothing, rendering all your time invested in his development entirely pointless between two movies. So, yeah. With all that being said, Joker Folie à Deux, the negatives outweigh the positives, and this movie deserves the rating of a 4 out of 10. Now, that may be high to some people, but I'm going to say this. The acting holds it together. The production values hold it together. The Todd Phillips, even though I think he disrespected the fan base, does put in A+ work. The cinematography is on the same level of that first movie, where it's just phenomenal looking. And the musical numbers, even though I feel that they're out of place, they are very well choreographed, and I do like the set designs of them as well. Like I said, they're very reminiscent of Martin Scorsese's New York, New York, so I give Todd Phillips some credit. But yeah, the overall story brings it down. The middling decisions that Phillips made bring this movie down, and it just never really lives up to the potential that I feel it could have had. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Joker Folie à Deux. Let me know yours in the comment sections down below. Like the video and subscribe, and I'll check you back next time for more.